Elizabeth down with her permission. Elizabeth down. We'll be starting in just a minute.
All right.
Okay, so yes, we would like for you to read, Roger, if you wouldn't mind reading twice.
Oh,
Matt,
sure.
you would read 3 times. Elizabeth, are you there? I think she stepped away.
I'll be the first reader, or
No, you'll be the third reader.
so you'll tell me? Okay.
Yes.
Good morning, it's Barbara
Good
T.
morning.
I'll read if you like.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I think Elizabeth is talking to you, but she's on mute.
Oh, Elizabeth, are you there? Would you be a reader this morning? You're muted. I think she's talking to someone else. So here's how this will go. Matthew, and then Barbara Taylor,
Okay.
and then Roger, and then myself. Did it like that. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 11:08. Aloha, dear friends, welcome to the Baha'i Unity Center and Sunday morning, devotional program sponsored by the Spiritual Assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb County and Sandy Springs, Georgia. So wonderful to have you with us this morning. Across the globe, the teachings of the Baha'i faith brought to us more than 150 years ago by His Holiness Baha'u'llah, its founder, and whose name in Arabic means the glory of God. His teachings have inspired and continue to inspire individuals and communities as they strive to improve their own lives and contribute to the advancement of civilization. Baha'i beliefs address such essential themes as the oneness of God and religion, the oneness of humanity and freedom from all forms of prejudice, the inherent nobility of the human being, the progressive revelation of religious truth, a gradual unfolding of God's purpose with the appearance of each divine teacher, the development of spiritual qualities, which allows us to reflect the image God made us in, the integration of worship and service with work performed in the spirit of service actually being accounted as worship in the eyes of God, the fundamental equality of the sexes more widely evidenced in a setting of equal opportunity, the harmony between religion and science as an established fact, the centrality of justice in all human endeavor, the importance of education, particularly for children, and the dynamics of the relationships that strive to bind together individuals, communities, and institutions as humanity advances towards its collective maturity. We've been having awesome programs every week, and this week is no different. We're pleased to have you all with us. Again, welcome. We'll begin with opening devotions, so please mute yourselves if you're not speaking and silence any electronic if you are speaking. Thank you. Matthew?
I adjure thee by thy might, O my God. Let no harm beset me in times of tests, and in moments of heedlessness guide my steps aright through thine inspiration. Thou art God. Potent art thou to do what thou desirest. No one can withstand thy will or thwart thy purpose. Wow.
Thank you, Matthew. Barbara?
Ordain for me, O my Lord, and for those who believe in thee, that which is deemed best for us in thine estimation, as set forth in the mother book. For within the grasp of thy hand, thou holdest the determined measures of all things. Thy goodly gifts are unceasingly showered upon such as cherish thy love, and the wondrous tokens of thy heavenly bounties are amply bestowed on those who recognize thy divine unity. We commit unto thy care whatsoever thou hast destined for us, and implore thee to grant us all the good that thy knowledge embraceth. Protect me, O my Lord, from every evil that thine omniscience perceiveth, inasmuch as there is no power nor strength but in thee. No triumph is forthcoming save from thy presence, and it is thine alone to command. Whatsoever God hath willed hath been, and that which he hath not willed shall not be. There is no power nor strength except in God, the most exalted, the most mighty, the Bob.
Thank you, Barbara. Roger? Roger, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
I beseech thee, O my God, by all the transcendent glory of thy name, to clothe thy loved ones in the robe of justice, and to illumine their beings with the light of trustworthiness. Thou art the one that hath power to do as he pleaseth, and holdeth within his grasp the reins of all things, visible and invisible. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Roger. In his name, the exalted, the all-highest, the most sublime. Glorified art thou, O Lord, my God. O thou who art my God and my master, and my Lord and my support, and my hope and my refuge and my light. I ask of thee by thy hidden and treasured name, which none knoweth save thine own self, to protect the bearer of this tablet from every calamity and pestilence, and from every wicked man and woman, from the evil of the evildoers, and from the scheming of the unbelievers, Preserve him, moreover, O my God, from every pain and vexation, O thou who holdest in thy hand the empire of all things. Thou truly art powerful over all things. Thou doest as thou willest, and ordainest as thou pleasest. Baha'u'llah. Matthew.
O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to appraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee through thy bounty and bestowal. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Matthew. Barbara.
Okay. Lord, pitiful are we, grant us thy favor. Poor, bestow upon us a share from the ocean of thy wealth. Needy, do thou satisfy us. Abased, give us thy glory. The fowls of the air and the beasts of the field receive their meat each day from thee, and all beings partake of thy care and loving kindness. Deprive not this feeble one of thy wondrous grace, and vouchsafe by thy might unto this helpless soul thy bounty. Give us our daily bread, and grant thine increase in the necessities of life, that we may be dependent on none other but thee, may commune wholly with thee, may walk in thy ways and declare thy mysteries. Thou art the Almighty, the loving, and the provider of all mankind. Abdul Baha.
Thank you, Barbara. Roger.
The fourth teaching of Baha'u'llah is the agreement of religion and science. God has endowed man with intelligence and reason, whereby he is required to determine the verity of questions and propositions. If religious beliefs and opinions are found contrary to the standards of science, they are mere superstitions and imaginations. For the antithesis of knowledge is ignorance, and the child of ignorance is superstition. Unquestionably, there must be agreement between true religion and science. If a question be found contrary to reason, faith and belief in it are impossible, and there is no outcome but wavering and vacillation. Abdul Baha, Baha'i World Faith.
Thank you, Roger.
Sure.
Be thou not sad and dispirited on account of the opposition of the heedless ones. Soon they shall regret sorely. Reflect how the Pharisees persecuted and looked down in contempt upon his holiness the Christ. The result was that his lamp became ignited, his light began to shine, and his followers sparkled like unto the stars from the horizon of existence. And the consequence to the Pharisees was the pangs of remorse and regrets. Abdul Baha. Matthew.
Baha'u'llah has written, "Verily the words which have descended from the heaven of the will of God are the source of unity and harmony for the world. Close your eyes to racial differences and welcome all with the light of oneness." Shoghi Effendi.
Thank you, Matthew. That concludes the devotional readings. It is now time for the healing prayer, and we are honored to have Ms. Jamie Fisher perform the healing prayer for us, after which she will provide another song, a musical presentation. If any of you wish to remember a loved one through the prayer for healing, please feel free to call out their name at this time. Josie Reynolds.
Elon Bowers,
Bob Montague,
Beth Bowen,
thy name is my healing, oh my God, and remembrance of thee is my remedy. Nearness to thee is my hope, and love for thee is my companion. Thy mercy to me is my healing, and my succor in both this world and the world to come. Thou verily art the all bountiful, the all knowing, the all wise. Thou verily art the all bountiful, the all-knowing, the all-wise.
That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Jamie.
The second song I'd like to offer is just knowing that many of you who are listening today will be starting a fast tomorrow. And then this is the last day of a Yamaha, and we're preparing for that fast. So this is the prayer you might know, let thy beauty to be my food. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Make thy beauty to be my food, and thy presence my drink, and thy pleasure my hope and praise of thee my action. Make thy beauty to be my food, and thy presence my drink, and thy pleasure my hope and praise of thee my action, and remembrance of thee my companion, and the power of thy sovereignty my succor, and thy habitation my home, and my dwelling place. The seat thou hast sanctified from the limitations imposed upon them who are shut out as by a veil from thee. Thou art verily the Almighty, so glorious, the most powerful.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
That
you
was
so much.
absolutely beautiful. Your voices, you have that lilting, beautiful sound in your voice. It's very inspirational and uplifting. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Original melody. It was wonderful. Thank you. Friends, each week we're blessed to have a guest presenter to come and share with us some their own insights on a particular topic. And this week we're honored to have back with us once again, Dr. Iraj Koradous, who prefers to be known as Roger, who has given presentations to this community on various topics. He was born in Iran during World War II. He came to the US when he was 19 to continue his education. And his graduate degrees are in accounting, industrial management, with a doctorate in public administration from the University of Georgia. He was a professor at Clemson University until his retirement. Now, while there, he initiated and facilitated a monthly seminar entitled Globalism, where students and faculty from all disciplines were invited to participate in discussions on major global issues and impediments to world peace, which led to continued discussions along Baha'u'llah's vision and mission for a better world. We are pleased to have him share with us today. So friends, please welcome Roger. His topic this morning is America and the Most Great Peace. Please welcome Roger.
Allah, dear friends. I'm glad to be here again, one more time. Some of you who may have been here when I gave a talk probably 2-3 months ago, the title of it was Peace on Earth as It Is in Heaven, From Dream to Reality, a Baha'i Perspective. And that topic was really the subject of a course that I facilitated for our Christian friends in Cobb County that actually just ended last week. And basically I connect the promise of Jesus Christ to the fulfillment of that prophecy and the teachings of Baha'u'llah, which was very well received. So this topic today, America and the Most Great Peace, based on the writings of Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, Shoghi Effendi, is the subject of the next course that I'll be teaching for our Christian friends, which would start in 2-3 weeks. America and the Most Great Peace. I'm saying this because I'm saying that if I can do it, and if I can reach tens or 20 or 30, 40 Christians at one time and share these things with them, all of us can. And I'm sure that many of you do. But anyway, this is the subject then, and let me go ahead and do the share screen and share with you what I want to say. But before that, I just also remembered that let me go back to 1951 when Shoghi Effendi started appointing hands of the cause. And do you know that in the course of his ministry, he appointed 42 hands of the cause. What is interesting is that at that time, based on Baha'i Encyclopedia, the total number of Baha'is worldwide, what do you guess, was about 200,000. From that 200,000, what percentage do you think were from outside of Iran or outside the Middle East, mainly Iran? Only 5%. So 200,000, 95% were Iranian or Middle East, but mainly Iranian, which is 190,000, and 10,000 Baha'is were from all across the globe, all other countries, including America and Europe and other parts of Asia, about 10,000. But then, from these hands of the cause, and of course, from that 10,000, probably there were 5,000, 6,000 in the US, 5,000, 6,000 Baha'is. And from these 42 hands of the cause that he appointed, believe it or not, 19 of them were from North America, 15 from US and 4 from Canada, and 11 from Iran. So there was so much potential in the American Baha'i community that even back then, when there were so few Baha'is, Shoghi Effendi had recognized, had honored so many of them to be handed the cause. And we really need to have time to talk about each one of them. I spoke about 2 of them. One of them was Louis Gregory from those 42 hands of the cause. And we'll talk about more of them later. So let me share a screen and go through this outline, which I'll be covering in 8 sessions for our Christian friends, but because you're all informed, I'll share with you all of that in 1 session right here. All right, so it is interesting. Let me go to the top of the page, sorry. Right here. It's interesting that, I don't know whether you had your feast already or you'll probably have it tonight, that this passage from NSA's letter for the Feast of Allah today, February 28, 2021. Abdul Baha assured us that America is in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendor of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the splendor of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the righteousness will abide and the free assemble. The celestial potency with which an all-loving master endowed this great promise has inspired the American Baha'i community, both in the past and present, to make historic contributions to the onward march of this cause. In our time, whether through entering into meaningful conversation with friends, family, and neighbors, administering to the spiritual education of children, empowering junior youth to direct their energies towards service to humanity, or attracting youth adults into joining the public discourse and activities addressing the material and the spiritual needs of our time, the increasing scope and accelerating tempo of our community building work requires ever greater levels of support and accompaniment. So I thought it was interesting that we have this talk today, and National Assembly says that this is really the topic for the day, for the month, and for years to come. There's so much potential in this community and so much promise by Baha'u'llah Abu Shoghi Effendi with regard to the future of this nation. Of course, after we overcome its very many shortcomings. Shoghi Effendi had said several times that the reason why Baha'i faith came from Iran was not because of Iran's capability and capacity, but the opposite of it, because it was probably one of the darkest corners of the earth. Darkest corner of the earth, where the faith came from. And now, USA, which is this cradle of the administrative order of the Baha'i faith, has so much potential, but it is we Baha'is we should bring it to surface and showing that this American nation has all this potential, but we need to work on it after we overcome racism, materialism, and all the others that we will discuss according to the writings. So Baha'u'llah addresses humanity in these words: The tabernacle of unity has been raised. Regard ye not one another as strangers. On one tree are all ye the fruit, and on one bough the leaves. The world is but one country, and mankind is citizens. Let not a man glory in that he loves his country, let him rather glory in this, that he loves his kind. And Abdu'l-Baha further elaborates, consider the flowers of a garden, though differing in kind, color, form, and shape, yet inasmuch as they are refreshed by the waters of one spring, revived by the breath of one wind, invigorated by the rays of one sun, this diversity increaseth their charm and addeth unto their beauty. How unpleasing to the eye, if all the flowers and plants, the leaves and blossoms, the fruits, branches, and the trees of that garden were all the same shape and color. So we have reminder after one another that this diversity of color and shape and nationalities, as long as we understand the meaning of being in a nation, but also part of this world and all the rest, adds to the beauty of God's creation. And then Baha'u'llah addresses in where? In Kitab-i-Aqdas, our most holy book. There's also a reference to America. Hearken ye, O rulers of America, and the presidents of the republics therein, unto that which the dove is warbling on the bank of eternity. There is none other God but me, the ever-abiding, the forgiving, the all-bountiful. Adorn ye the temple of dominion with the ornament of justice and of the fear of God, and his head with the crown of remembrance of your Lord, the creator of the heavens. Thus counseleth you he who is the dayspring of names, as bidden by him who is the all-knowing, the all-wise. The promised one hath appeared in this glorified station, whereat all beings, both seen and unseen, have rejoiced. Take ye advantage of the day of God. Verily, to meet him is better for you than all that whereon the sun shineth, could ye but know it. O concourse of rulers, give ears unto that which hath been raised from the dayspring of grandeur. Verily, there is none other God but me, the Lord of utterance, the all-knowing. Bind ye the broken with the hands of justice, and crush the oppressor, who flourishes with the rod of the commandments of your Lord, the ordainer, the all-wise. So, of course, as you know, that Kitab-i-Aqdas was revealed in 1873, and years before that, which means started with 1868, Baha'u'llah started writing his tablets to the kings and rulers of the world, including the rulers of America. And even there, showing the promise as to what they should do and what they should not do. So that is the beginning. That was the beginning. And then Abdu'l-Baha, as quoted in World Order, says, from the beginning of time until the present day, the light of divine revelation hath risen in the east and shed its radiance upon the west. The illumination thus shed hath, however, acquired in the west an extraordinary brilliancy. Consider the faith proclaimed by Jesus. Though it first appeared in the east, yet not until its light had been shed upon the west did the full measure of its potentialities become manifest. The day is approaching when ye shall witness how, through the splendor of the faith of Baha'u'llah, the west will have replaced the east, radiating the light of divine guidance. So back in early 1900s, Abdu'l-Baha is also promising, based on the promise of Baha'u'llah, that yes, the faith came from the east, but it will shine brighter and brighter in the west. And the brightest of them all would be from America, will be from US, that will spread this light across the globe, as you have already done in many ways and will continue to do. When we go through the history of the faith and reading the story of Hans of the Cause and the early brilliant people who rose from this nation from the year 1900, from the year 1898, when we had the first pilgrims, American pilgrims who went and visited with Abdu'l-Baha. They rose. We had the rise of the likes of Martha Root and Agnes Alexander and so many others who went throughout the globe teaching the Baha'i faith. And the spread of the faith is first and foremost achieved by the American Baha'is, and will continue to be so, because that's the promise. That's the promise of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha. Again, Abdu'l-Baha says, behold the portals which Baha'u'llah hath opened before you. Consider how exalted and lofty is the station you are destined to attain, how unique the favors with which you have been endowed. The full measure of your success is as yet unrevealed, its significance still not apprehended. The range of your future achievements still remains undisclosed. The moment this divine message is carried forward by the American believers from the shores of America and is propagated to the continents of Europe, of Asia, of Africa, of Australia, and as far as the islands of Pacific, this community will find itself securely established upon the throne of an everlasting dominion. Then will all the peoples of the world witness that this community is spiritually illumined and divinely guided. Then will the whole earth resound the praises of His majesty and greatness. Yes, it was so many early American Baha'is who went and conquered the world, from Africa to Australia, Japan, and elsewhere. It was primarily through the efforts of American Baha'is. You all know of Henry and Clara Dunn, right? Both of them became under the cause, but soon after they heard of the Tablets of Divine Plan, after World War I, 1918, 1919, they rose from all the way from California. They went to Australia. There was not even one Baha'i in Australia, and conquered Australia and New Zealand. And after a few years, after their pioneering and going all over the place, we had the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Australia and New Zealand, and so on. So there's so many examples. So Shoghi Effendi devised the major milestones along the road leading the American believers toward their promised victory as follows. The first of these 4 decades, 1893, that's the year that Baha'i faith came to US, it was 1893, to 1903, characterized by a process of slow and a steady fermentation. There was lots of problems, there was lots of ego, lots of people who was causing problems. But it was that period of fermentation, so full of the tests and trials which agitated, cleansed, and energized the body of earliest pioneers of the faith in that land. Had as their happy climax Abdu'l-Baha's memorable visit to America. This was the second period, 1903 to 1913, when Abdu'l-Baha came in 1912 for almost a year, from coast to coast, and spread further and further the teaching of the faith in churches and so many other places. And the third period, he calls it 1913 to 1923, a period of quiet and uninterrupted consolidation, had its inevitable result the birth of that divinely appointed administration, the foundation of which the will of the departed master had unmistakably established. And this is the period where the faith was consolidated, was the beginning of establishing the house of worship in Wilmette. What was set up when the USA had its first National Spiritual Assembly. And then the remaining 10 years, 1923 to 1933, distinguished throughout by further internal development, as well as by notable expansion of the international activities of a growing community, witnessed the completion of the superstructure of the Mashra Askar, the symbol of the strength and the sign of its future glory. So all of this, according to Shoghi Effendi, was accomplished, and particularly between 1923 and 1933, is where you had so many amazing pioneers. Many of them became hand of the cause, and many of them became the apostles of Abdul Baha. From Europe, as I said, to Japan and Australia and New Zealand and India and Africa and all over the place, and South America in particular, Central and South America. During the latter part of the ministry of Abdul Baha, America achieved the establishment of Chicago's first House of Spirituality. That was before we called it Assembly or National Assembly. They call it the Chicago House of Spirituality. The formation of the Baha'i Publishing Society, the predecessor to the Publishing Trust. And then it was during that time when we had the foundation of the Greenacre Fellowship, early 1900s. We had the Greenacre as it became our first school and summer school. And then the publication of the Star of the West as our Baha'i magazine. And incorporation of the Baha'i Temple Unity, subsequent to the holding of the first National Baha'i Convention, and the formation of the Executive Committee of the Mashra Askar. All of these things were achieved during the time of Abdul Baha. American Baha'is also served as travel teachers and pioneers in Alaska, Europe, France, Great Britain, and Germany, plus Baltic Peninsula and Scandinavia, West Indies, Latin America, South America, China, Japan, India, Tahiti, the Australian continent, and as far as Tasmania and New Zealand. Isn't it amazing? I'm jealous, guys. You guys have accomplished so much already, more than anybody on the planet. Anybody on the planet, any Baha'i community on the planet, including Baha'is of Iran, who were 200,000 almost, but at the time of beginning of 10-year crusade, 1953. So the likes of Louis George Gregory that we have already talked about, Keith Ransom Keller, a young lady who rose up, went to Japan, traveled to Australia and South Asia, and based on the advice of Shoghi Effendi, came to Iran, trying to protect the rights of the Baha'is of Iran. One American Baha'i lady who had more influence than all the 200,000 Baha'is who were being persecuted and put aside. And of course, Martha Root, who traveled all across the globe several times. And you know, she met almost 400 heads of the state and ministers and prime ministers, including, of course, others, and spoke in so many different universities all over the place. And of course, Amelia Collins, another hand of the cause. And we mentioned Henry Dunn and Clara Dunn, who went to Australia. And Corinne Knight-True, does everybody know about Corinne Knight-True? Or another hand of the cause, who in 1903 mentioned to Abdul Baha, this was the year that they started building our first Mashra Askar in Ashgabat in Turkmenistan, part of today's Soviet, right at that time's Russia. That was our first house of worship was built. And Corinne Knight-True, a young lady with a few children and a housewife, in 1903 wrote to Abdul Baha and says that now that they have built a house of worship, why don't we begin some kind of house of worship? 1903. And Abba said to this housewife lady that you'll be in charge. You're in charge of building the Mashra Askar. And for years and years, this lady with her few children and a housewife, and all of them obeyed the instruction of Abba and wrote to anyone he could, traveled anywhere he could, spoke to every single Baha'i that she could in order to raise the money for building the house of worship. And of course, by the time Abba came, they probably had $20,000, $30,000 from the $1 million that they needed. And they bought the land in Chicago, in Willamette, when Abba blessed. So this was carrying right through. And at the age of 91, Shoghi Effendi honored her for being under the cause. She was 91, the oldest under the cause. We had these kind of people in a group. Agnes Baldwin Alexander, another under the cause. Dorothy Baker, whose grandma had become Baha'i, and she was raised as a Baha'i, and she became under the cause. And so these were among our many hundred causes. We had 1,900 causes in North America. 8 of them were women. And all of them brave, brilliant, over 100 years ago, traveling all over the globe, spreading the teaching of the Baha'i faith, as well as other women, such as Loa Getzinger, that you all know about. Mae Maxwell, the wife of William Maxwell, who also became under the cause, and also the mother of our beloved under the cause, Rui Khanum. And Susan Moody and Ella Bailey, Marion Jack, these were all among the early women Baha'is who rose for triumph of the faith throughout America and all other continents of the globe. I hope I'm not boring you, but this is important stuff. Hermione, how many more minutes do I have?
Probably about 20.
About 20 minutes. I hope everybody will stay awake. So we will cover the rest of this, hopefully. This is wonderful stuff. And it's all about you, about the American Baha'is, and what you have done, what you'll continue to do. Shoghi Effendi called the American believers the spiritual descendants of dawnbreakers. He praised their dedication to the cause and encouraged them to follow in the footsteps of the heroes of an early age by becoming self-sacrificing living martyrs. Yes, we have had 22,000 martyrs in Iran, but he wants you to be living martyrs, living the life and spreading the teaching in your state, in different states, and all across the globe, the best you can. Even if you can go travel teaching for 1 month, do it. You can do it, guys. It was not long after that he called the American Baha'i community the cradle of the administrative order. So anyway, soon after, Shoghi Effendi explained that God had chosen that country to be thus distinguished by reason of the patent evils. Listen to this. He said we are so good and so important, but not but now he says, distinguished by the reason of the patent evils that were rampant in the lives of his peoples. The evils he enumerated, and which would stand in contrast to the virtues and perfections of the builders of God's administrative order, are as follows. Immersion in the sea of materialism. Still continues, right? I'm the best, I'm number one. I can accumulate billions of dollars. Oh, I may give a few pennies or a few dollars to here and there, but I'm a billionaire. I want to have 5 mansions and 25 cars, all of that. This immersion in the sea of materialism, from the Baha'i perspective, is ugly. A prey to one of the most virulent and long-standing forms of racial prejudice. We're all familiar with that one. Still continues. Yes, we've had KKK. We don't have KKK in the Congress anymore, but some of them could be promoting, at least indirectly, KKK ideology or white supremacy and things of that nature. So we have come a long way. We have a long way to go. That's why he says, in spite of the evil, the patent evils that exist here, immersion in the sea of materialism, a prey to one of the most virulent and long-standing forms of racial prejudice. One of the worst is here, and it still in some ways continues. A victim of political corruption, of lawlessness, and laxity in moral standards. I guess you have all seen political corruption, right? We don't interfere in politics, but we can look at it and see what's happening. Invading the capital, right? In the name of our side is right, their side is not right, we're going to destroy them, we're going to kill them. It is 2021, right? So the political corruption and lawlessness, and of course, laxity in moral standards. This is the country that we have all kinds of skin magazines and all kinds of corruption in the form of bars and strip clubs and this and that. Still continues. So the contrast is here. And still, many of them consider themselves as the most religious. So Shoghi Effendi mentions these in particular in his Advent of Divine Justice. He has also made references to the problems of nationalism. Yes, it's good to love our country, but if you love your country by demeaning other countries, by saying that even though we have possibilities, but I care less about you dying behind the borders. I won't let you in. This is my country, and from here on, it's going to be closed, right? And militarism. Oh, we have spent almost $1 trillion a year, $1 trillion on weapons of mass destruction. And if somebody wants to raise the minimum wage from 7 to 8 or from 8 to 9, there's lots of hoopla, right? We can't afford it, we'll become bankrupt. These kind of extremes, right? So this is what he calls the patent evils that still exist. And periodic isolationism. Okay, and also there are periods in time that they said that the world may be falling into pieces, but it's not my problem, it's their problems. And there are also the vices of hedonism and militarism that was mentioned earlier. Although headways toward global constructive engagement occurred after World War II via such entities as European Reconstruction, Point 4, Peace Corps, but do you know that for all of them combined, we spent at its peak probably a couple of $1 billion. Now, much less than $1 billion. $1 billion a year for constructing the world. Just imagine if rather than $1 billion, we're spending $10 billion in building schools and hospitals all across the globe, how much more we become closer to that promise of Baha'u'llah, which is world peace, how much more we'd be honored all across the globe. Well, all of that is coming because these are all the things which were of the past, the things that continues, but with the help of God and with the help of Baha'u'llah and with the help of open-minded people and the dedicated believers, these things would be overcome. Let me share a few more passages. I have a passage here from Prophet Muhammad, who says the most despicable people are those who hoard money and keep counting it. Yes, we have to have savings. We have to have money to build a house, to feed our family, but basic needs. And of course, not everybody has equal talents. Baha'u'llah doesn't agree with equal wealth for everybody, regardless of your talent, regardless of your effort. But the extremes of wealth and poverty is a sin that Baha'u'llah wants to get away with. And in spite of all the things that we see here, eventually we will see that this will also happen, because that's God's promise, and we are his agents on earth, and we'll make it happen. So Baha'u'llah cautions us against extremes of wealth and poverty, and is spending our resources instead on ourselves, our family, and those in need. Abdu'l-Baha, in his Some Answered Questions, discusses the merits of progressive taxation and workers' profit sharing that was basically initiated in 1950s and 60s, but then they tried to eliminate it the best they could until 1980s, when we had regressive taxation. One of the presidential candidates at that time says that the system of taking it from the needy and giving it to the greedy. They said at that time, it was 1980s, why should billionaires pay so much taxes? We should lower the taxes much lower than even the middle class, because they would create jobs. Extreme fallacy. So such excesses and unbridled capitalism, he called it unbridled capitalism, has led to some 7 individuals in this country alone to have hoarded resources equivalent to the means of livelihood of some 40 to 50% of the world population. 7 people own and control as much as 50%, which means 4 to 5 billion people across the globe. Is this fair? Is this just? Or you may agree that this is just insane. He further states that freedom from racial prejudice in any of its forms should, at such a time as this, when an increasingly large section of the human race is falling a victim to its devastating ferocity, be adopted as the watchword of the entire body of the American believers. It's at least we should definitely, at the beginning of the faith, when faith came to this country, of course, those who became Baha'is were the same kind of people who came. And it took years and years until we gradually, most of us, understood it. And a lot of it because of effort of the likes of Louis Gregory, who was so much supported by Abdu'l-Baha and Zen Shoghi Effendi, and walked on that path of not only reconciliation, but understand the oneness of humanity, regardless of race or class. So he tells us, close your eyes to racial differences and welcome all with the light of oneness. And Abdu'l-Baha quotes Baha'u'llah saying that the various races of mankind lend a composite harmony and beauty of color to the whole, that all associate, therefore, in this great human garden, even as flowers grow and blend together side by side without discord or disagreement between them. Let me share a few more passages, and then conclude. So now, this is now another thing which, for some of us who may not have totally absorbed ourselves in the Kitab Aqdas, which is a short book, only 110 pages, because this is land of freedom. Let me say it quietly, friends. Baha'u'llah does not like a lot of freedom. Let's read his words and try to, perhaps as a conclusion of this discussion, also try to work in this path as well. Baha'u'llah condemns the excessive freedom that leads to all kinds of deviations, violence, and vices in the strongest terms. In the Kitab Aqdas, Baha'u'llah says, consider the pettiness of men's mind. They ask for that which injureth them and cast away the thing that profited them. That kind of freedom. Freedom without boundaries. They are indeed of those that are far astray. We find some men desiring liberty and priding themselves therein. Such men are in the depths of ignorance. Liberty must in the end lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. If there's nothing else that we remember, we can't remember, we remember January 6th and an invasion of the Capitol, right? Liberty, it's all right. This man says that it is his, he should have won, so let's go do it for him. Liberty must in the end lead to sedition, right? Whose flames none can quench. If it reaches this point, none can quench. Yes, you can put 200 of them in jail, 300 of them in jail, but it's a mess. You have millions of still KKKs and white supremacists and people who may not say it because it's not civil anymore to say it, who think this way, who believe in this manner. Liberty must in the end lead to sedition, whose flames none can quench. Thus warneth you, Baha'u'llah is saying this, thus warning you, he who is the reckoner, the all-knowing. Know ye that the embodiment of liberty, Baha'u'llah says, know that the embodiment of liberty and its symbol is the animal. He says it's animal who wants to do whatever they want to do. Okay, the lion is hungry. Okay, let's go on and kill a few lambs, and then we'll be not hungry anymore. But even they don't do what we do. Liberty causes man to overstep the bounds of propriety and to infringe on the dignity of his station. It debases him to the level of extreme depravity and wickedness. I think it's particularly those of us who are raised here, we need to read this passage and reflect on it. And with his majestic word, try to explain it to everybody. That no, liberty is not all good. Regard men as a flock of sheep. Just like a company needs a leader, needs a president, a school needs a principal, a class needs a teacher, he says that humanity is also like a flock of sheep that need a shepherd for their protection. This verily is the truth, the certain truth. We approve of liberty in certain circumstances and refuse to sanction it in others. We verily are the all-knowing. Say true liberty consisteth in man's submission unto my commandments, little as ye know it. We are meant to observe that which we have sent down unto them from the heaven of revelation, they would of a certainty attain unto perfect liberty. Happy is the man that hath apprehended the purpose of God in whatever he hath revealed from the heaven of his will, that pervadeth all created things. Say the liberty that profited you is to be found nowhere except complete servitude unto God, the eternal truth, that's the last passage, whoso hath tasted of its sweetness will refuse to barter it for all the dominion of earth and heaven. Okay, we'll stop here at this point. I thought the 8 sessions that I'm going to cover for our Christian friends, I can cover it in one session, but I covered about 60% of it. So friends, let's open up for a little dialogue.
Well, thank you, Roger, for that enlightening presentation once again. Let's see, Barbara, are you gonna change the view?
Okay, I'll stop it. The next passage was about Abraham and his will and testament that continues this this path of how we can get to unity and how important the role of Americans are.
You still have time. You could have read it.
Okay. If you want me, I'll read it. Okay, sorry. some reason I can't get back to it. Okay, here it is. Okay. Let me read this passage in from Al-Baha. Al-Baha Will and Testament was called by Shoghi Effendi as the charter of the future world civilization. The document was already known by the more modest title of the Charter for the Establishment of the Islamic Administrative Order, which in turn would ultimately give birth to the Baha'i world civilization. Shoghi Effendi expanded on that charter by a plan which extended from 1937 to 1944, with the goal of the completion of the exterior of the temple in Wilmette, the formation of the spiritual assembly in each state of the US and province of America, Alaska. That happened then, let's remember, between 1937 and 1944. And 3, the establishment of a center in each republic of Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is what was achieved during the course of Shoghi Effendi's, based on the will and testament of Baha. Shoghi Effendi was pleased and proud of them, the American Baha'is, and was offering their institutions and teaching plans as models for the entire Baha'i world to emulate. The American believers had truly won the palm of victory. This was now followed with the second plan, 7-year plan, which was from 1946 to 1953. And then, of course, we had the 10-year plan. A lot of it was based on the experience of the American believers and their pioneers in South America and Asia and elsewhere. So we'll stop at that point. Thank you for your patience and for your attention, dear
Thank
friends.
you, Roger. That was very enlightening, as I mentioned before. Lots of critical details really in our Baha'i history. So we appreciate that. Friends, if you have any comments or questions, anything that you want to ask about this presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and share what you would like to know about. Anything that struck you in particular. Taras?
Mute. Okay.
One of the things that I thought about was when you mentioned liberty, when we did see the horror of January 6th,
Yeah.
that was called liberty. They had the right to congregate, and look what happened. 6 people died, and a whole nation was put in peril and in fear. All of us who watched that experienced something awful inside.
Yes.
You know, fear is a horrible thing. So yeah, that's too much liberty. Perhaps our Constitution needs to be rewritten in light of who we are now, and get rid of some of these liberties that only cause horrible trouble and are responsible in larger measure for the racism that goes on in this country, and every other ism.
Yes, we need to reorient. Go ahead.
I was glad that you pointed that out.
Thank you. Yeah, we need to reorient ourselves to the question of liberty by as Baha'u'llah says, by following his commandments, by sharing it unabashedly with everyone. See what happens when you have this kind of liberty. Or the one who instigated, right? We don't say the name or the word, but that guy or many other guys who instigate the racists or nationalists or people who are low in morals or whatever, to do these kind of things. No, they are responsible. And Baha'u'llah says that you become like animals if you have this kind of liberty. And this was, as you're saying, this was the prime example of it. And there are so many examples of it. You know, what KKK has done, all those lynchings that happen in this country, the land of liberty. So that's why Abdul Baha and Shoghi Effendi say that, yes, there's so much potential, but the potential is here because you have these extremes. And we need to get rid of these extremes until until that blessing of God embraces. I think Taraz wanted to say something.
Yes. Unmute now.
Unmute.
Unmute. Do you have some air plug? I'm sorry. You have anything plugged into your computer? We can't hear you. No, now you've muted yourself for sure. But we can't hear you.
Yeah, I was going to make the same suggestion. Taraz may like to write what he wants to say if he can't.
Yes. Did you want to put it in the chat? Are you familiar with the chat and how it works?
You can just go to chat and type up whatever you want to say.
On your computer, do you have your computer muted?
It's not.
No, his own computer, not Zoom. The computer microphone is separate from the Zoom audio.
Now he's muted.
No, that one is muted too.
You hear me now?
Yes. Now I can
Yes.
hear you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Iraz Khan. Bye. Now there is an echo.
Yeah, because you have both of your, whatever you're on here twice and both of your devices are on. One of them needs to go off. The first one that you muted, mute that one and see what happens.
How about now? No.
Perfect. Yes.
How about now?
We can hear you.
Go ahead.
Iraz Khan, what's the Kitab Aqdas? Is it a compilation of various letters that was put together, or is it something Baha'u'llah wrote, at that particular time?
My understanding is that Kitab Aqdas is, of course, a most holy book, is a separate book by itself, which was revealed by Baha'u'llah in 1873 while he was in Akka, and that subsequent to that, there were hundreds and upon hundreds of questions that friends asked, and for the first time in the history of religion, Baha'u'llah said that any and all questions are welcome, and therefore his answers to the question became a larger volume than Kitab Aqdas itself. Kitab Aqdas is 110 pages, but the questions that are compiled is over 200 pages, which is the summary of the questions that Baha'is had and to which Baha'u'llah responded. That's my understanding.
We cannot hear you because you reversed the situation. Mute your current computer and unmute the other one. Your phone, whatever that is. I believe it's a phone or something. No, that one needs to be muted and the other one unmuted. You had it right before and you switched both. Now they are.
So in the meantime, if other friends have thoughts or questions, they can
Jamie.
raise. And
Unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm thinking about this concept of liberty, and the liberties available through the American Constitution are precious liberties, which can allow us, I think, to explore freedom in different ways as people in this country. And one thing I've noticed from the readings that you shared, Roger, it's about the kind of liberty that is harmful to a society are the liberties in which someone pursues their materialism, pursues their self-interest, and are free to do so at the expense or to the detriment of others. So the liberty to amass great wealth by exploiting others, that is a liberty that's harmful to society. The liberty to say anything you want necessarily can be harmful to society if you're lying, or if you're treating people poorly through those words. At the same time, the liberty to share belief in God and share the teachings of God, the liberty to go wherever you want, and as long as you're not hurting others, those are beautiful and precious liberties. And I think it's in some ways the like you said, we need to reorient our concept of liberty, and also that the changes that we need, some of them will be legal. Like there's all kinds of structural legal problems in this country that perpetuate the reward for those detrimental freedoms. And so those need to be changed. But then in other cases, the reorientation that we need is of the hearts. It's of the hearts of human beings who are pursuing their selfish interests and exploiting those liberties to do so.
Yes, of course, Baha'u'llah, as he concludes, he doesn't condemn liberty in general, but he condemns a lot of liberties. Liberty to say anything you want, liberty to accumulate whatever you want. Of course, that's another issue. But even on the question of language, they just I'm free. I'm a free person, so I can say whatever I want to say. I can think whatever. Even I can think whatever I want to think. It seems to me that Baha'u'llah eventually wants to put a hold around it. No, you're not free to say whatever you want to say. You're not free to even think whatever you want to think, because you need to be trained that there's a higher source, that there's God, obedience. That's why, particularly in our when we pray, when we bow down, this is that to be the training of humility, the training that we are nothing, is part of that process. Yes, liberty in its generality and what is in the Constitution is beautiful, but human mind needs to be trained as to what it is. And also, a lot of these so-called freedom that as long as he has not killed anybody, he can say whatever he wants to say. No. When you say whatever you want to say, then you can create this mess. And also, you probably have heard of politicians saying that, well, I believe in all alternative truth. There is no alternative truth. In the pathway of Baha'u'llah, truth is truth, whatever way, whatever we think. Yes, this faith allows consultation for as long as necessary, as long as it creates more harmony. But eventually, on a lot of these issues, through consultations, through patience, through love, we can reach that point of harmony. So I think some of you may still be in that transition. That no, Baha'u'llah does not say that anything goes and you can think anywhere you want to think, you can go anywhere you want to go, you can read anything you want to read. No, Baha'u'llah wants to put the limit to all of these things. Because we as human beings need shepherd, because we as human beings need parents, because we as human beings need teachers, and all of those systems put limitations, including probably 90% of whatever we have in this country, including the Playboy magazine, the Hustler magazine, a lot of things that we see on the news and these kind of things. Baha'u'llah wants to put a limit on it because there is no alternative to truth. Anything, search for truth and find what the truth is and share it in accordance with science and accordance with religion. That's why we have harmony of science and religion. And so this is a subject really by itself, but thank you for those comments.
I think I'm back. Am I back?
Yes, you're
now?
back.
You're
Okay,
back.
I'm using computer audio and my phone. No, the other way. My phone audio and computer video. Anyhow, that's fun. We pronounce certain names, which is a little dilemma for me. We pronounce Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, Habibullah. Now, this you that the way it's translated, Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha, and even like Nasif Habibullah, which I guess, is influenced by the way the writers are. This is a bit confusing. And, we are told that Yud is silent, and it's really, we should learn to pronounce, the way it's intended, Baha'u'llah, Habibullah. And then there are other words that are more complicated, like Uqullah, not everybody can say they, or Ayamaha, not Yamaha. Yamaha is a piano, Ayamaha. And, but the more important is, again, the name of the manifestation. And Abdul Baha, what is your take in that?
Well, the way you pronounce it both ways, and the way some of the friends who are not familiar with the Persian Arabic pronunciation say it, does not seem to be too distant, Baha'u'llah or Baha'u'llah. Yes, probably, if you have Persian friends, Arab friends, and try to practice and say Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha. That is the correct pronunciation. But in the meantime, I think Baha'u'llah would forgive us for that minor sin, because there's so many other things we have to accomplish, including the question of language. As you know, Baha'u'llah tells us that eventually we have one mother tongue and an auxiliary language. And then if you have read further, from my understanding, where did I read it? I have to bring the document, that Baha'u'llah said that eventually there'll be one language in the world. When all of these things really happen, when humanity becomes really one race, we actually become even one race. Abdullah wanted it. Abdullah says, the reason why I want Louis Gregory to marry Louisa, part of it is that because you intermix, and even the race becomes one. So we don't know how it'll be, but in the golden age, maybe in 500 years, there'll be one race, the human race. There'll be one nation. There'll be really one nation, like United States, as Abdullah suggested. The world will become like United States, and there will even be one language, because Abdullah says Baha'u'llah says it's a waste of time to learn 7, 6, 8 languages, even 2 languages. But for now, for the next coming 200-300 years, let's learn 2 languages, and that will eventually also become one. So I think time will take care of it, and yes, we will try to pronounce it the best we can in the meantime.
So what would happen, because Farsi and Arabic are language of revelation. Now, an international language, which we are told then, the leaders will come together and choose one that would work internationally. But the language, again, definitely Farsi and Arabic, and not including, the Old Testament and the Bible and all those, but surely these 2 languages have to remain because of the revelation.
Of course, we have a center for study of the text in Haifa, and that's what they do every day of the year, 365 days a year, to study minutely and meticulously for either translation or explanation of the text. under the guidance of universal justice. So no doubt that the language of revelation would remain. The language of revelation of Jesus remained for, I don't know, 1,000 years, whatever, Aramaic or other languages, but we don't know what's going to happen after 1,000 years. But for now and for generations to come, there'll be scholars, even when we have one language and one auxiliary language, who will continue for this, as you said, for the study of the text and for further elaboration of the text in the writings. That's my understanding. Like other
Well,
friends,
it is 12:30 at the end of our program, just about. And actually, well, first of all, I want to thank you, Roger, for that awesome presentation and for fielding the questions and comments that came after. Jamie has offered to do one more song for us, and we're going to allow that this time. And after that, we will have a couple of announcements and then close with our closing prayer.
Wonderful. And Jamie, you were wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to offer the Prayer for America as a song. It was read earlier during the devotions. And thank you, Roger, for reminding us of the great example of the early American Baha'is, and also so much work we still have to do to contribute our share to world peace. Let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most praiseworthy. This American nation is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee, O Lord.
Thank you, Jamie. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I'll mute it. I'm not sure if you heard me. I unmuted myself, but then somehow it was muted again. Anyway, thank you so much. That was absolutely gorgeous. Appreciate it. Thank you. You must come back with some music in future.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, friends, I'm not sure if we have any guests here tonight who haven't been with us before, but if you feel that you want to, you've been away and want to share your coming back journey, please feel free to do so at this time. And if not, we're going to make a couple of announcements and close with prayer. Just to let you know, today's program has been recorded and posted to the YouTube channel entitled South DeKalb Baha'i Unity Center, where it can be viewed, and you can invite others to view it as well. Our upcoming speakers are next week, Gary Solsky, and the week after that, Area Teaching Committee, Metro Atlanta. So please be sure to stop in for another outstanding presentation. Details will be forwarded soon for joining. And remember that the food distribution program is every Thursday. Barbara, is it starting up this Thursday, as you had mentioned before?
Hard time unmuting. I think so, yes.
Okay, so it's every Thursday, including this Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Baha'i Unity Center in the parking lot. Please spread the word to help combat food insecurity within the community. And for members of the Baha'i Faith, you're warmly encouraged to make a financial contribution to the South DeKalb Baha'i Fund and the National Baha'i Fund through the online contribution system, the OCS, at ocs.baha'i.us, or you can mail a check to the Baha'i Unity Center at 2370 Wesley Chapel Road, Decatur, Georgia, 30035. Many thanks to all who worked together to make today's program possible. Our speaker, thank you. Roger, our volunteer readers, we appreciate you. Barbara Hennix for keeping us moving forward. The spiritual assemblies of the Baha'is of South DeKalb and Sandy Springs, Georgia. And thanks to all of you for sharing your day with us. We appreciate that. I'm Hermione Pickens. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, stay safe and well. Happy Ayamiha, and have a blessed fast for those of you who are fasting. The closing prayer will be a prayer for the departed. Barbara, is it going to be posted or do we need to do something else? Matthew, would you like to read it?
Sure. Glory be to thee, O Lord my God. Abase not him whom thou hast exalted through the power of thine everlasting sovereignty, and remove not far from thee him whom thou hast caused to enter the tabernacle of thine eternity. Wilt thou cast away, O my God, him whom thou hast overshadowed with thy lordship? And wilt thou turn away from thee, O my desire, him to whom thou hast been a refuge? Canst thou degrade him whom thou hast uplifted, or forget him whom thou didst enable to remember thee? Glorified, immensely glorified art thou. Thou art he who from everlasting hath been the king of the entire creation and its prime mover. And thou wilt to everlasting remain the Lord of all created things, and their ordainer. Glorified art thou, O my God. If thou ceasest to be merciful unto thy servants, who then will show mercy unto them? And if thou refusest to succor thy servants, thy loved ones, who is there that can succor them? Who can, okay. I'm sorry. Glorified, immeasurably glorified art thou. Thou art adorned in thy truth, and thee do we all verily worship. And thou art manifest in thy justice, and to thee do we all verily bear witness. Thou art in truth beloved in thy grace. No God is there but thee, the help in peril, the self-subsisting.
Thank you, Matthew. Well, friends, that's the close of our program for today. Hopefully, we will see you all again next week. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Aloha.
Yeah, thank you.